Uniform Civil Code. My point is this. Are Muslims who are the one community, and I don't talk of progressive Muslims, because for instance, Zakia Suman, I've been on debates with her in the last couple of days. She's a highly progressive voice. But there are regressive Muslims who say that UCC aayega to Musliman barbad ho jayenge.
And in fact there have been voices which have said that this is imposition of some kind of a Hindu law that's going to come, and I think that's fear mongering. That's not valid. Saira Shah Halim, I want to come to you before I go to Zakia Soman and Flavia Agnes as well. Saira, how do you see the present move of the government? There are various critics of the government as well who argue that why did the government wait for all these years, and if the move had to be taken, why was it not taken earlier? Is this merely something which is being said before the elections? AIM, various other opposition parties have said this is a political bait. The government is not serious on the promise of the UCC. Your thoughts on this criticism? Saira.
Okay, firstly, good evening.
Good evening.
Well, the debate on the UCC is as old as the Constituent Assembly itself.
Indeed.
And it's very clear that it was desired. The founding fathers of our constitution said this in unison, that this is not mandatory, however, it is desired. That is the reason it is in the directive principles of state policy. Secondly, Article 25 clearly says that religious freedom will be given to all groups, different social groups, religious groups in India to manage its own affair. It is very, very clear. Now, again, the point is, it's not about the minority community. I don't know why people are making it as if the Muslims are hammer and tongs against the UCC.
But Saira, can I make an interjection? Can I make an interjection?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
I agree with you, and I think that's basic law, that if a uniform civil code comes in, it's going to affect all religions, any kind of codes that exist, present laws as well that govern the Hindus and different communities. That being said, the most problematic aspect of personal laws is the Muslim personal law. We need to talk about it so that the reform can happen. If there is a personal law which has not been codified or has not been a subject of reform as much as any other personal law, it is the Muslim personal law, and we need to be able to talk about it openly so that the reform can happen in a constructive manner.
Yeah, so point here is about the priority. We have seen how Manipur is burning. Wouldn't it be more prudent to visit Manipur and ensure that, you know, the issues there which has led to so many violence and so many deaths, isn't that the burning issue, that those issues should be resolved? Or is it the Bharatiya Janata Party campaigning for 2024 elections? Because here it is very clear, because if you look at the special tax status of the Hindu undivided families, the majority community will be very, very concerned about it. There are other things about inheritance, about the joint family, and so many other issues. And I think the Law Commission right now is seeking views on the Uniform Civil Code. We cannot really trust it upon a country as diverse as India, where every 100 kilometers, even the language and dialect changes.
Saira, I see what you're making. I see what you're making. Before I go to other guests, I want to ask you this, because you're you make these reasoned arguments, but I find a flaw there. Each time we talk about the reform of personal laws, it is said, look, there is a problem in that part of the country. Look, there is politics which is happening. I say all of that is true. It may be true, it may not be true. But you cannot deny that the reform of Muslim personal law has been pending and it needs to be taken up.
See, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
If the UCC is about easier adoption, I'm for it. If it is going to make the process of adoption and equal inheritance of women, I'm all for it. I'm all for any progressive law, but I'm against chaos, mayhem, and confusion, and the polarization that happens, because...
All right, I want to take Sanjay ji, I'll come back to you. I want to take opening arguments from everyone. I want to cut across to Zakia Soman as well. Zakia ji, why don't we deal with this issue head on? If there is a need for reform in any personal law, whether it's the Hindu personal law, Islamic personal law, or a Christian personal law, why are we so shy to talk about it? The politics of vote bank has held the reform hostage for decades now. Isn't it time to do away with it?
Thanks for having me, Anusha. We have been demanding codified Muslim family laws for the last almost 20 years.
Yes.
But nobody is listening to us, neither the clergy, nor the politicians, nor the social leaders. Muslim women have been systematically kept out of the ambit of legal framework. You know, it's as though all is well. That is the kind of stance which is adopted by the leadership. But in reality, if you see, Muslim women are suffering so many kinds of injustices right from the age of marriage, right from the question of procedure of divorce, right from the question of polygamy, denial of custody and guardianship of children, denial of share in property, denial of Quranic rights such as consent and meher, and even, you know, inheritance. So they have been at the mercy of interpretations by the clergy. The clergy has a very, large sections of the clergy have a very, very patriarchal mindset. They are caught up in the worldview that women are subordinate to men. This lies at the heart of the problem. Why the reform has not happened. Because the moment women demand justice, women demand rights, they feel that it endangers Sharia. Now, I don't understand, when the religion itself provides for gender justice, how does that translating into reality endanger Sharia and the religion? That question has to be asked of the Muslim clergy, and it is because this, and there are two other reasons. The other fact is because it is Uniform Civil Code is part of the BJP's agenda. It's part of their manifesto. That these are the two primary reasons why it is perceived largely as a Muslim problem. But as you very rightly said in your introduction, because Muslim community is the only community which has, you know, not undergone any kinds of reform in the last 70 years. So that is at the heart of the problem. And it is high time.
And what is very troublesome is that Islam was one of the first religion to grant women the property rights to the extent that the religion did ever since its inception. But the manner in which the conservative ideology has overtaken the religion, there are regressive interpretations of it, which we call as Sharia law in the country. Flavia Agnes, I want to come to you as well before I go back to the BJP for a reaction. You have often argued that when we talk about a uniform civil code, we need to ensure that we are cautious with this idea. Is there a caution that needs to be exercised when we toy with this idea?
I agree with this. There has to be a caution. And the BJP's motto or the aim seems to be very suspect. So that is what is the concern. Because the 2018 Law Commission report, 21st Law Commission's report, Reform Within Personal Law, it had all these things. There's nothing that was left out, in fact. And the government did nothing to implement it. Now, suddenly, just before the election, they have come out saying, we need a UCC. I don't disagree with Zakia saying that Muslim law needs reform. All personal laws need reform. All personal laws are patriarchal. And we have to weed out all discrimination against women. I'm not saying all personal laws are great. And Zakia listed the hardship women undergo under Muslim law. But even Christian women have hardships, even Hindu women have hardships, even other community women have hardships, tribal communities have hardships.
But you know,
is this
ma'am,
law applicable to all of them?
Ma'am, with due respect, the difference between the hardship of other communities versus the Muslim community is the fact that the hardship of Muslim community is some way sanctioned by law. Because these personal laws are protected under Indian Constitution, under the various judgments of the Supreme Court, and because they cannot be subjected to the tests of fundamental rights because of the judgment of Narasu Appamali. So that makes it an outlier in some ways. I want to cut across back to Sanju Verma. Sanju, a quick reaction from you. Yes.
You know, Anusha, first and foremost, thank you so much.
I am not finished, madam. I am in the halfway.
Oh my God.
Ma'am, I'll come back to you. Ma'am, I'll come back to you. Sanju, you make your point. I'll go back to Flavia Agnes and I'll take her comments as well. Finish your point.
Thank you. Anusha, first and foremost, let me thank you for addressing the elephant in the room. Because I've been on the UCC debate in the last 72 hours on so many channels, and some of the anchors themselves have refused to address the elephant in the room, which is the fact that while the Uniform Civil Code will apply equally to Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, Christians, the reason why Muslims keep coming up in discussions is because who sanctions polygamy legally? It is the Muslim law. Who sanctions nikah halala legally? It is the Muslim law. Look at the Hindus. In 1829, we banned sati. In 1870, child marriage was banned amongst Hindus. In 1929, Female infanticide was banned amongst Hindus and was made a punishable offense in 1978. Dowry was made a punishable offense for Hindus in 1961. So like I said, Hindus have actually progressed and reformed from the days of Manusmriti. But sorry to say, some regressive Muslims still have a Khilafat style mindset which is so 20th century and not 21st century. And just tell me one thing before I end, what is the population of Muslims today? It is about 14.3% of India's total population at 140 crore. What is the population of Buddhists, Jains? Less than 0.5 or 0.2% of India's population. Christians about 1.8%. Sikhs about 1.6%. Jains about 0.34%. What I'm trying to say is, can I call Buddhists, Jains, Parsis, Zoroastrians, Sikhs, Christians as minorities? Certainly yes, because they account for less than 2% of India's population on a standalone basis. But Muslims accounting for 14% still cry, sulk, whine, play the victim card.
A section of them.
Muslim Samaj ko, we are being persecuted. Just 10 seconds more.
Yes.
Each time a Muslim comes here and talks about Article 25, 26, let me remind them, Hindus don't get special benefits which Muslim community gets and minorities get under Article 29 and
Ma'am, frankly speaking, if a uniform civil code comes in and the certain benefits of the majority community are taken away, so be it. I mean, that's something which is a constitutional mandate. I want to cut across back to Flavia Agnes. Flavia ji, a quick point from you, and then I'll go back to Saira and Zakia Soman as well.
No, my point, in fact, I've lost the thread now because you interrupted me.
Yes.
But anyway, let me come here and say that when you say Hindu law got reformed, Hindu law got reformed, Hindu law got reformed, I've done a study of women who are killed in their matrimonial home, and out of 500 cases, about 3 or 4 were Muslims. The rest were all Hindus. So why are Hindu women killed in their homes? If everything is progressive in the Hindu law, can they deny it? Can they deny custom of dowry? Can you deny Kanyadan, where you offer a girl as a token to the husband? Can you deny Pati Parameshwar concept among the Hindus? Can you deny all this when so much reform is there? Why are Hindu women dying? Muslim women are divorced, I agree.
I just have one point to say. I have to go to the other guest as well. I was married in a Vedic ceremony, in a Hindu Vedic ceremony, and there was no Kanyadan. So a lot of things have come into our religion and become a part of the folklore and practice.
You may be. Even I got married
exactly.
That doesn't mean.
So nothing is, and it's not sanctioned in law. Kanyadan is not sanctioned in law. It's a practice which is not protected in law.
Polygamy is sanctioned in law.
I want to cut across to Zakia Soman and Saira Halim as well. Saira, please go ahead. Make your point.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that here we are very clear that, as far as the Indian constitution is concerned, it's not a constitution guarantee, nor is it a fundamental right. And as, the learned speaker just said, that we have a lot of social evils in all religions. Have we done away with female feticide? Have we done away with female infanticide? Have we done away with the dowry system? So, here, if you talk about religions, they are regressive practices that are very patriarchal and parochial in every religion. So then we need to do away with all superstitions. We need to do away with all practices.
Sarah, I agree with you. I agree with you. But can I make a point to you? No, one second.
Stick to beat the Muslim community.
No. I want to make that point to you as a learned person. I want to make that point to you. Let's say, for the sake of argument, there's a religious scripture in Hindu law that says that women need to be treated subordinate to men. And that particular scripture has not been overruled by any act, any statute, or by the constitution of the country, and it's prevalent, protected by Supreme Court judgments and various other provisions of the constitution, versus a practice which has been outlawed. All these things that you pointed out in various communities have been outlawed. What is being argued here is that certain social ills within the Muslim community are legally permissible. We need to make sure that they are not legally permissible. Saria, please go ahead.
Didn't we do away with the triple talaq? Didn't we do away with the triple talaq? Didn't we do away with every draconian practice? So what I'm trying to say is that here, if you do something like we have seen how the farm laws were repealed just because a law was implemented without proper consultation, without taking the stakeholders into confidence, and it was implemented because it suited a certain political party, and they were making a pitch for the election. Similarly, here the Law Commission has asked for advice and inputs, and I feel we should be very prudent at this point of time and ensure that everybody, including the AIMDP, including all other religious bodies of every community, their opinion should matter. And we cannot bulldoze a law. We cannot bulldoze a law upon the citizenry of India, because we have seen
and I remember, Saira, last time when the Law Commission had given its recommendation, the All India, one second, the All India Muslim Personal Law Board and their opinion was taken. The opinions of everyone was taken. Sanjay, before you come into the discussion, this is a point which is often made, and this is about the political honesty, intent, and the integrity with which this move is being taken up. What is being argued here is that this is just a poll plank. This is just a propaganda. You're not serious about the idea, or not, convinced about the idea of a uniform civil code in intellectual honesty.
Anusha, I just have this to say before I answer your query, because this, special rights that are given to Hindus under the HUF Act, that keeps coming up for discussion. So let me tell you that personal laws pertain to marriage, divorce, inheritance, guardianship, maintenance, so on and so forth. They don't apply to taxation. But hypothetically, assuming that they apply to taxation also, let me tell you that the HUF benefits are given to a particular individual. They are not given to an entire community. Point number one. Point number two, to avail HUF benefits, there are three important things that need to be adhered to. You have to trace your birth to a common ancestor. You have to be legally married. You have to have a legal offspring. And the fourth and most important, which people don't know, is that you have to be staying in India continuously for 730 days or more for the 7 years preceding the relevant year for which you're filing your tax returns. So please don't compare apples and watermelons by bringing in this HUF thing. Second point, I don't know, some panelists, mentioned about farm laws and Manipur violence, but this same panelist will not talk about the fact that a few days back, Shambhu Das, a poor BJP worker, was butchered to death in broad daylight at Dinhata in Cooch Behar. And it is not only the Kolkata High Court, but the Supreme Court has castigated Mamata Banerjee government, saying you have failed in maintaining law and order. If you can't maintain law and order, why don't you cancel the panchayat elections? So please don't sit here and give a bhashan to the BJP. If you speak about Manipur, have the audacity to talk about Bengal, which you don't. Last but not the least, people who say BJP is doing vote bank politics, unko main yaad dila do, and I will take only 20 seconds, Anusha. 31% of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana benefits go to Muslims. 37% of Mudra Yojana benefits go to Muslims.
I have last few minutes on the show. I want to give Zakia Soman also the concluding arguments in this discussion. A quick point from you, Saira, and then I'll go back to Zakia Soman. Saira, quick point.
All I'm iterating once again that India is a country where the dialect changes every 100 kilometers. So how can we have the same set of rules for all communities? Every community has a different way of praying, performing rituals, conducting ceremonies like marriage, the freedom to practice one's faith, and the way of life is granted to everyone by the Constitution. Again, I'm not saying that I'm against UCC. What I'm trying to say is that people in one area are not uniform. And if you implement any law in a hurry, it will affect all the communities. And here I'm not talking just about the minority communities. I'm saying if you implement any law and you don't take the stakeholders' account or their opinion or what they feel about it, it can really backfire.
Okay, I want Zakia Soman to have the last word into this discussion. Zakia ji, you, like many other eminent women on this panel, have worked for the rights of women for decades now. And I want to ask from you, because the reform of personal laws directly concern the life of women. I find it appalling that Article 14, right to equality, is a fundamental right. It's one of the most important rights under Indian Constitution. Yet a huge chunk of women's life is governed by personal laws. Personal laws which are archaic in nature. Certain communities have got their due in the favor of reform, in the way of reform. Some have not. We need to talk about Muslim personal law is the moment right now? Zakia ji.
Definitely. And even the communities who have reformed personal laws, we see injustice happening to women because we are a male-dominated society. But that doesn't mean, that cannot be an excuse to deny Muslim women legal parity. So Muslim women are also citizens of India, and they are entitled to legal protection just like all other women. I will also say that the responsibility lies with the government to build a conducive climate towards a code which is very inclusive and which incorporates all the affirmative practices from all faiths and all backgrounds, and stands the test of the Constitution, which is about equality and justice, both gender justice and gender equality. So I think that should be the guiding principle, and all stakeholders, all voices.
But Zakia ji, I'm sorry to interrupt, but isn't it utopian to expect that all stakeholders will be on the same page? When the Hindu Code Bill was being implemented, there were proponents of Hindu religion, the so-called proponents, who were against this kind of reform that was happening. So any conservative class from within any community is bound to resist these kind of reforms. To have a utopian perspective that everybody can be on the same table, is that really something we can ask for?
No, we must. Diversity is good, pluralism is good, but that does not mean that anybody has a right to discriminate against women. Nobody has a right to have misogynist practices in the name of diversity and pluralism. So that is a non-negotiable. That's why I'm saying at the heart of the code should be gender justice and gender equality.
This is about gender justice and gender equality. Article 14, the right to equality. Women should have it as much as men. And personal sphere of life, as the feminists argue, there is nothing personal about personal laws. I thank you all, you formidable women, for joining us on the broadcast for this wonderful discussion. UCC one day would be a reality in this country. At least that's what Dr. Ambedkar envisioned when he was drafting the Indian Constitution. We're slipping into a very short break. Up next on the other side, a fresh showdown in the state of Tamil Nadu after the governor sacked Senthil Balaji from the post of the minister, accusing him of obstructing the investigation. Is the governor authorized in his action? We'll talk about that story.
Head. And allow me to say this, and I'm a very clear believer of this, that anti-Brahmanism is perhaps a precursor to anti-Hinduism, not perhaps, surely a precursor to anti-Hinduism. That's been the history of it. Because they want to strike at the core of the Vedic religion, and therefore Brahmins and Brahmanism is what they are after. So that's one. Two, what does this mean? You're looking at a population that's less than 2% or 2.5%. That's the definition of a minority. Some other groups with 30%, 27% get away with tags of minority. These are actually the true minorities. Where do you find the Tamil Brahmin population today? Pune, Chembur, Bangalore, Mysore, Aurangabad. These are the parts of the country where they fled. Hyderabad and other places. Okay, this is what happened. Now, coupled with that, when you increase the reservation to 69% above the constitutional limit to 50%, what are you effectively telling people? Get out of the place. That's what they did. Okay. Now, when this community is targeted, who is going to stand up for them? Fortunately, I would say in the last few years, one name has certainly surfaced, which despite not being a Brahmin, understands the realities of what is happening and has started speaking in favor of the community and has started speaking against the anti-Brahmin slant of Dravidianism. That's Annamalai. Having said that, let me also say this. Annamalai's position may not necessarily be the entire position of the BJP across the board. Because the fact of the matter is, the BJP said in Karnataka that it would relinquish control over temples. And this was made as a public statement and they backed out from it. Okay. Then in Uttarakhand, they took control of temples, close to 51 temples. They would not have given it up because the Uttarakhand High Court actually gave them a seal of approval subsequently. This was challenged in the Supreme Court. Before the Supreme Court could actually rule on this particular matter, fortunately, Uttarakhand elections came about. And because 20% of the population of Uttarakhand, or at least a significant population, is a Brahmin population, they said, I'm sorry, this is not going to happen. Then they gave up control. So it's a question of muscle at the end of the day, political muscle and electoral muscle. Constitutionalism in this country rarely works in favor of those communities who don't have political or electoral muscle. That's the fact of the matter, whether it comes to reservations or any other issue. Brahmins from Tamil Nadu are a micro-minority. Most of them have gone to California. Now caste has come back to revisit them in California in a very different way, thanks to Californian resolutions, SB 403 and whatnot.
403.
Right? So the more you try to run away from a problem, it grows in size. It's time we realize that, and we stopped, turned around, and gave it the fight that it calls for.
Now, my final question on this one, because and how does this matter proceed? Because there is only a legal solution to it. Politically, there is no solution right now. The legal solution has to be in the top court of the country, because the Supreme Court passed the ruling in 2014, and what is happening is in gross violation, as you said,
Correct,
of the court orders. So, who takes this story forward to the Supreme Court?
So
Are you willing to represent it?
Welcome back. There's another showdown between Tamil Nadu governor and the government, and this one has escalated. Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi has dismissed Senthil Balaji from the state cabinet without consulting Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. Balaji is accused of money laundering case. This is a multi-crore cash for job scam when he served as a transport minister under the previous AIADM government. He joined the DMK in 2018. Now in May this year, when the Supreme Court paved the way for an ED investigation, it was observed that justice and fair play had been compromised, adding that corruption by a public servant was an offence against the state and society. These were the words of the Supreme Court. The court also ruled that it was the duty of the Enforcement Directorate to register an information report, take action on this matter. Balaji was eventually arrested by the ED on the 14th of June and is in judicial custody till the 12th of July. He has been hospitalized after being arrested, but Chief Minister Stalin retained him as a minister without a portfolio. The governor accused him of abusing his position, influencing the probe, and obstructing the course of justice. The CM has vowed legal action, calling the governor's order illegal. The big question is, as this showdown is very likely head to the court, can the governor's decision stand the test of law? I mean, will this decision of the governor really stand firm in law if the matter were to go to the Supreme Court of India? That's the big question we ask on Brass Tacks tonight.
அதிகாரம் கிடையாது. அது சட்ட ரீதியாக அதை சந்திப்போம்.
Well, joining us on the broadcast is Mr. Narayan Tirupati, the Vice President of Tamil Nadu BJP, Mr. A. Sarvanan, who's the spokesperson of DMK, Kailash Vasudev, who's a senior advocate, joining us on the broadcast as well. Good evening to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Yeah. Kailash ji, I want to come to you first before I go to the political spokesperson and the political debate starts. Is the governor right in what he has done? I'm talking about the rule of law. Was the governor authorized to take this action, sir, in your learned opinion?
Look, good evening. In the scheme of the Constitution, the governor has to act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. The removal of a minister is also prescribed under Article 164 of the Constitution of India. So there is a procedure prescribed in the Constitution. The Chief Minister is appointed by the governor as a majority. When he has a majority in the House, he is appointed the Chief Minister. He recommends the appointments of ministers, and the ministers are appointed in that sequence. The power to remove a minister can only come on the recommendations of the Chief Minister. You cannot remove a minister ad valorem, like it has happened in this case. If this starts happening, then the sanctity of the separation of powers, the federal structure, will collapse. The Chief Minister, like the Prime Minister under Article 74, has to be available with his Council of Ministers to aid and advise the President of India. Likewise, the governor has to be advised by the Council of Ministers. He is not in charge of the Council of Ministers. He has to be advised by the Council of Ministers. And the advice of the Council of Ministers is binding on the governor. If he disagrees,
so I have another pointed question. You've elucidated that the governor needs to act on the aid and advice of the chief minister, and any other action, the manner in which the governor has acted, in your opinion, is a violation of the federal structure, which is a basic tenet of Indian constitution. Now, the governor has passed an order. What is the next step? Does the elected government need to go to court? They can very well say, well, this order is without any sanctity. But the fact that the governor's office has taken a decision which we might believe is illegal, but it needs to be called illegal by a constitutional court. Will they have to go to court?
Considering the fact that there is a collusion going on from what we hear from today's news, the chief minister can always recommend that the man be restored in office. It is there that the stalemate will come.
Okay.
Go to the court is an option available to everybody. It's a fundamental right. No one can stop you. But what happens if the chief minister says, please bring this gentleman back as member of my council of ministers? The governor cannot then say no.
Yeah.
Because he has to act on the advice of the chief minister in the framing of in the constitution of the council of ministers. Okay. These matters are not bereft of law. They have been matters of discussions in this starting from Mumbai in 93-94.
Well, sir, but what I find really appalling is that we have seen various standoffs between the government and the governor. But this is unprecedented in a different way. I've been a student of law, and I don't remember any instance in Indian politics where a governor has taken a decision in this manner.
You are absolutely right.
Yeah.
You, as a governor, you are a statesman meant to look after the affairs of the state and work in tandem with the government. You are not the government.
Exactly.
The government are the elected people.
I'm also waiting for the BJP spokesperson to join us on the broadcast.
I just want to go one step further.
Yeah.
From what little I have seen on the news today is that these people, that the governor has acted because the man has been arrested for corruption. In all legislative assemblies, including parliament, almost 40% of the MPs
are accused of corruption. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you go ahead and dismiss them. I completely agree with that point. Before we get in a word from the BJP, we also have Mr. Saravanan with us on the broadcast. Mr. Saravanan, I'm sure you already heard my conversation with Mr. Vasudev, but I must ask a question to the DMK as well, and this question is rather on propriety. I'm not talking about the governor's action or the legality of the governor's action. I will ask that question to the BJP as and when they join us on the debate. But this is a minister who has very serious charges against him. Why did the government decide to retain him a minister without a portfolio?
Yeah, see, it's good to know that you are a student of law and you fully appreciate that this kind of an action is unprecedented, has never happened in independent India. So legally, let me put it for my part that legally the governor is clueless. He is undermining the constitution. He is acting in a clownish way. This is not expected from the governor who's holding the high constitutional office. So let us be clear that the governor does not have any power. Whatever he does, he has to do that in the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers, and he is a rubber stamp, a postman and a yes man in the constitutional scheme of things. This is what everybody knows, every law student knows, every man with a civic knowledge knows. Now the governor here, and you are asking about propriety. The propriety is with the ED. Can the ED arrest someone for a case which happened 10 years earlier?
Sir, they were acting on Supreme Court orders. Sir,
Supreme
the
Court.
action was taken on Supreme Court orders.
Let me come to it.
Yes.
Let me come to it. The Supreme Court did not say arrest him. The Supreme Court said go investigate. The Supreme Court in the last 15 years, in any number of judgments, has said in white-collar offences, arrest should not be resorted to. Is he a flight risk? Is this a heinous crime?
Sir, Mr. Saravanan, I have to reiterate that question to you. Yes, I have to reiterate that question to you. My question to you, we spoke of constitution, we spoke of propriety in the context of the governor's action, and those questions will be asked on this broadcast. But there's a question to the DMK as well, that where is constitutional morality, the integrity that any elected government should have, sir? Mr. Saravanan.
Yes. Since we are talking about constitutional morality, I'll have to go into that question of why he was arrested. He was arrested by one arm of the union government. Why the union government is targeting this minister? Because they think that if he arrest him, we can intimidate the DMK government. Is this the constitutional morality the BJP government is following? The ED has the audacity to go to the secretariat? Why should they go to the secretariat for a crime which happened in 2013, 2015? He swore in as a minister when he was in 2021. You think that he's going to have the evidences in his secretariat office? So why did they do that? They did that because they did not want to follow constitutional morality. They wanted to intimidate. We have a terrorist as an MP. We have Mr. Narayan Rane arrested.
But
And he
Mr.
was
Saravanan,
released on bail.
Mr.
He continues
Saravanan,
as a minister.
Mr.
How many
Saravanan,
ministers have criminal charges?
If there is a serious
does
charge
constitutional
against your
morality
sitting
go in all those
minister,
cases?
Mr. Saravanan, you're right that constitutional morality has been given a go-by in many criminal investigations in this country. You're right.
Yes.
But isn't your party a party with difference? Isn't your party the one which upholds the rule of law? Isn't your party the one that has put out the Dravidian model of governance? And shouldn't you be held accountable to higher standards of governance?
Beautiful question. How do you ensure that the snake bite? How do you save a snake bite victim? By giving the same venom. This is what we are doing. We are teaching BJP. The BJP is extremely upset because of the failure of the ED to arrest Mr. Senthil Balaji, take a custody and intimidate him, harass him.
I am being told that there is some problem and that's why we're not being able to get a BJP spokesperson.
Let me finish this.
Yes,
one
finish
more
your
point for me.
Finish
One
your
more,
point.
10
Finish
seconds
your
for
point.
me.
Yes.
If this same logic is applied, will the president tomorrow dismiss Mr. Amit Shah? You were not able to maintain law order in
I have maintained in this discussion that legally, I believe the governor's action is on a very flimsy ground. Mr. Narayan Tirupati has a problem with the connection. I believe he's joining us on the broadcast via phone line. Mr. Tirupati, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Good evening.
We have Mr. A. Saravanan and Mr. Kailash Vasudev, who's a senior advocate with us on the broadcast. We've been talking about the decision of the governor. And I want to ask from you that is the decision of the governor has any kind of sanctity or authorization in law? Was the governor being consulted? Yes, please go ahead.
The governor has appointed the minister and he understands that the minister has violated whatever oath he has taken. He is a corrupt person. He has taken money for giving government jobs. It has been, in fact, he himself has admitted. And the Supreme Court has very clearly said that special investigation team should be formed. Wherever...
But Mr. Tirupati, please allow me an interjection. Mr. Tirupati, one second.
Let me finish. I don't want any...
All right, make your point. Make your point. Make your point.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Then you ask.
Get out, sir. Get out.
One second, Mr. Saravanan, Mr. Saravanan, no.
Not
that language on the show. Not that language on the show. Not that language on the show.
You bloody fools have ruined this country, right?
Mr. Narayan
You get out, man. You get out of the studio.
Mr.
You are
Narayan
coming to the national channel and
Can I just have the BJP? Can I just have the BJP, please? Can I just have the BJP, please? Can I just have the BJP, please? Mr. Narayan Tirupati.
Who are you?
Mr. Narayan Tirupati. Mr. Narayan Tirupati. It's just you on the broadcast. Will you please go ahead and make your point? You were talking about the merits of the governor's order. Can we come back to the debate, please?
First you mute him. Then I will talk.
It is only your audio
I don't want to listen to these clowns.
Sir,
these clowns,
you are audible.
I don't want
You are audible. You are audible.
This fellow is a clown.
You are audible to the viewers and you will not be interrupted while you're making an argument like no other panelist has been interrupted. Please go ahead and make your point, sir.
Yes. See, the governor has appointed the minister. The minister has failed in his duties. And it is very clear the governor has written so many times to the chief minister, the government also, that the Senthil Balaji should be dismissed. It is not the governor who said Senthil Balaji is a cheat. It was Mr. Stalin, the present chief minister, who said that Senthil Balaji is a cheat. He only said that he has cheated so many people. Is it not so? Even you have played those videos. But now, in spite of saying all those things, now he is keeping him as the minister without portfolio. Is definitely a fault. The governor has appointed him. The minister is at the pleasure of the governor.
Mr. Tirupati,
if there are any legal hurdles or if there is any legal problem, let them face it.
Mr. Narayan Tirupati, you are a responsible politician who understands the law and political system in this country. The governor appoints the minister on the aid and advice of the chief minister. It is so let me finish my point and then you can rebut me. There is no precedent. There is no precedent in this country when the governor can can take an action in this manner. Many would argue, we have a senior advocate on the broadcast who argued that this action of the governor is completely unwarranted in law. It is against the federal structure of India to work like this against a federal government, a duly elected government of the day.
If there is no precedent, let it be the precedent. Absolutely no problem. If there is a problem, let them go to the court and face it. What is the problem? Mr. R. N. Ravi, the governor, would have definitely consulted so many legal luminaries on this. He would have taken the legal advice. Let us see what happens. Nothing wrong. Why should see? He has taken 3 lakhs for giving a conductor job. Okay.
1 second.
So much of poor people's money he has taken.
You know, Mr. Tirupati, before we were having some problems to connect with you, and my questions to the DMK were persistently about the constitutional morality in holding a person like this as a minister, despite having very serious charges against him. So that's the point I've taken with the DMK. But I believe Mr. Saravanan has a point to make, and I request both of you, please refrain from personal jibes.
I don't want to listen to him. Why should I listen to him?
Sir, because he's the spokesperson of the DMK.
Why should I listen to Klaus?
Can we please have a...
I answered you. I don't want to argue with this fellow.
So you don't have to argue with him. You don't have to argue with him. I will. He can address to me, and I will address those questions to you as an anchor. Mr. Saravanan, my humble request to you: can we please refrain from personal jibes? Make your point. Go ahead.
Yeah. See, that's what the constitutional morality. Does the BJP have any moral authority to speak about people who are tainted to hold office? 33 ministers in the BJP government are tainted. So many criminal cases against them, murder charges. We have a terrorist as an MP. 6 persons were killed. We are having Brij Bhushan Singh. He has been given a red carpet welcome. What is the charge against him? What can be more heinous than that?
You know,
sexual assault. On whom? The golden girls of this country. And the BJP is coming here and preaching us morality. This must be the biggest joke. Irony will jump from the cliff and die.
Mr. Saravanan,
listening lectures of morality from the BJP.
What will your government do from here on? Are you going to move a court of law? That's what I want to know.
See, the Chief Minister has indicated in a brief press conference that we will move the Supreme Court. See, this is one view. That apart, what value does that paper have? Will it even have the value of the paper on which it is written?
Well, you might argue that, sir, but the unfortunate part is that it's written on the official paper of the governor's office.
So what?
So you'll have to go to a court. You'll have to go to a court.
You are saying that. You are saying that. I am asking, if the governor says tomorrow dismiss the DGP, dismiss the Chief Minister, dismiss the Prime Minister, will you listen to that? Will you go to the court to get it nullified?
Can I answer that?
Yes,
I don't know if you're aware, there was a case of Justice C.S. Karnan. And he, in his tenure as a judge, had passed certain orders which were not legally tenable, and some would call them frivolous. There was a special bench of the Supreme Court that had to sit and overrule all those orders because he was a judge.
Yes.
And in his official capacity had passed those. So, one second. So, to answer your question, that is it worth the paper it's written on? I guess it is.
No, it is not. That is your view. This is my view. That apart, the Supreme Court, this is not a new issue. The Supreme Court is already a constitutional bench of the Supreme Court. In the Nurul's case, has clearly said it is not our duty. It is not anybody's job. It is the prerogative of the Prime Minister or the prerogative of the Chief Minister to appoint ministers. If they are tainted with some cases, some criminal cases, it is the responsibility. Last point.
30 seconds, sir.
Yes. If the president tomorrow dismisses Mr. Amit Shah, you have not maintained law and order in Manipur, will the BJP clap their hands and accept it with glee? Because the same logic applies to the president also.
Mr. Kailash Vasudev, I'm coming back to you. How does it go from here on? The different possibilities and conjectures that you laid out, the possible options before the Chief Minister, lay down a ground for an imminent clash between these two constitutional authorities, the Chief Minister's office and the governor. Can this all be avoided if they go to a constitutional court? I believe Supreme Court is the forum here.
Not necessary. You can go to the High Court because it's a matter which has come within the state of Tamil Nadu. You don't have to go to the Supreme Court. The matter can be done before the High Court. The High Court is equally empowered to look into this. It looked into the dissolution of the houses by the governors under 368 and the like, immediately at a point of time where things were very sensitive. In 1977, when the recommendation was made by the then government, the governor should resign and the government should resign for the purposes of having an election because the Congress had lost power in the center. See, these are not matters which go to the Supreme Court directly. I don't know. We made the Supreme Court the dumping ground for all disputes.
I know even bail matters go there.
When the High Courts have parallel powers.
Yes, yes.
Go to the High Court, take a decision. Those judges are equally competent. They eventually land up in the Supreme Court. This business of attacking the Supreme Court, I use the word attacking not in the sense that you are saying adverse things, but attacking means you're going into the Supreme Court that do everything for us. Now let's come back to this issue. You have a governor who has removed a person as a minister on the grounds of charges of corruption, premised on a certain observation of the Supreme Court. This man has not been found guilty. There are only charges against him. If there are charges, arrest him by all means, but you can't remove him. It's a totally different situation to remove a constitutional function. You mentioned Karnan's case.
Yes.
Karnan was held guilty for contempt.
Yes.
His orders may have been set aside as different, but he was in contempt because of what he said. He was never removed from his office.
Exactly. Yes.
He could not be removed.
Yes.
To remove a judge, you've got to go through a complete constitutional process,
Of impeachment.
including impeachment.
Yes.
In the case of the removal of a minister, the chief minister has to give a recommendation.
So, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, and I don't want to interrupt that fascinating argument. But to put it succinctly, because we have paucity of time, the forum of a constitutional court is something that the government will have to resort to. The DMK might believe that this order is not tenable in law, and that's what the legal experts are also saying. But it needs to be set aside. At the very least, the ground is set for an imminent clash yet again between the elected government and the governor's office in the state. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Brass Tacks. Thank you for watching.
Hindu, it's also anti-Brahmin.
Correct.
His point was that the Chidambaram temple is also being targeted because it's run by Dikshitars.
Correct.
And it still remains the last bastion of a Brahminical institution managed on its own in Tamil Nadu.
Correct. See, the thing is, unfortunately, there is a history of anti-Brahminism thanks to Dravidianism, which itself, according to me, is foisted, supported, nourished and watered by external actors. And that's been the history right from the beginning. It was propped up as a counter to what was seen as Brahminical Congress by the then Madras government. Okay. And there are instances where the leaders of the so-called movement, if at all it can be called one with any degree of conscience, went to London asking the British government to stay back because they did not want independence. They wanted to be stooges of the British. And they are the ones who are accusing everybody else of being stooges of the British today, unfortunately. So, one, there is a very clear history. Thanks to that movement, there was a massive exodus of the Brahmin population from Tamil Nadu. While most people speak of the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, because that's more bloody, or rather it's bloodier, it's visceral and it's clear, people don't speak of the exodus, the forced exodus of Tamil Brahmins from Tamil Nadu thanks to this movement. The fact of the matter is, the common people of Tamil Nadu are not anti-Brahmin. And you can see this in most hinterland, let's say, districts or in the interior parts of Tamil Nadu. It is in political spaces that this anti-Brahminism rears its ugly head. And allow me to say this, and I'm a very clear believer of this, that anti-Brahminism is perhaps a precursor to anti-Hinduism, not perhaps, surely a precursor to anti-Hinduism. That's been the history of it. Because they want to strike at the core of the Vedic religion, and therefore Brahmins and Brahminism is what they're after. So that's one. Two, what does this mean? You're looking at a population that's less than 2% or 2.5%. That's the definition of a minority. Some other groups with 30%, 27% get away with tags of minority. These are actually the true minorities. Where do you find the Tamil Brahmin population today? Pune, Chembur, Bangalore, Mysore, Aurangabad. These are the parts of the country where they fled. Hyderabad and other places. Okay, this is what happened. Now, coupled with that, when you increase the reservation to 69% above the constitutional limit to 50%, what are you effectively telling people? Get out of the place. That's what they did. Okay. Now, when this community is targeted, who is going to stand up for them? Fortunately, I would say in the last few years, one name has certainly surfaced, which despite not being a Brahmin, understands the realities of what is happening and has started speaking in favor of the community and has started speaking against the anti-Brahmin slant of Dravidianism, that's Annamalai. Having said that, let me also say this. Annamalai's position may not necessarily be the entire position.
Hello, Namaskar. This is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. France is burning. The riots that began with the shooting of a teenager are spreading. The images from Paris are quite dramatic and the president is locked in a war of words with the police union. How did all of this happen? Have protests become the hallmark of Macron's presidency? On Vantage tonight, we'll discuss. In Sweden, a copy of the Quran was burned outside a mosque on Eid. The reactions have been swift and on expected lines. Sweden says it is freedom of expression. Its allies say it's legal but inappropriate. Had it happened in a country like India, they would have been quick to call it a backsliding democracy. Also, what was the need for this protest? Is this to scuttle Sweden's NATO bid? We'll explain. Joe Biden is confusing Ukraine with Iraq, not once but twice. China has police stations